Hey everybody, Pastor Nate here to do a recap of week 1 of our Crushing Change series. We know that summer is here, and with summer comes a lot of change. Change is inevitable, whether it's change that's happening to you or change because of a decision that you have to make. And so we're talking about how to crush change so that it doesn't crush you. We started out by talking in Genesis chapter 12, taking a look at a big change that happened to Abram, the man who would eventually become Abraham. And it was when God called Abram out of his home country to begin the new nation of Israel. And the first thing that we noticed is that as much as we would like to know the full picture of God's plan, He often only gives us the next step. Sometimes God just gives us that next step, that next thing that we have to do in order to be faithful to Him, that next thing that we have to do in order to crush the change, in order to make it through whatever we're going through. And while it would be nice to know God's plan, while it would be nice to know what's coming down the road, we know that we can trust God and that sometimes it might be best for us to just take it one step at a time. The second thing we talked about is how in every great adventure, they all start with a step of faith. Any story, any movie that you've ever enjoyed, it always starts with someone taking a step of faith. That first step, that first decision that starts the action. With Abram, it was the decision to step out in faith, going to somewhere he had never been before, doing things that he had never done before. He didn't even fully know where he was going, but he chose to trust God, and he left his home and started the nation of Israel that God used to bless the entire world through. And that was our third point, that even though we can only see the next step, God is guiding us with the big picture in mind. He's guiding us through our journey with the destination in mind. And so while we have a very narrow view of life, while we are trying to sort of muddle our way through things sometimes and just trying to get to that next step, God is showing us how to get to where is ultimately best for us in the end. And if we can trust Him in that, then change would be a lot easier to deal with. So as you go throughout this week, I encourage you to consider a couple things. First off, what change is coming up for you? What changes are you currently going through? And are you trusting God with those? What might God be trying to show you in the midst of that? And perhaps maybe what is that first step or that next step that He's shown you? Thanks so much for listening, and hope to see you next week as we finish our Crushing Change series.